Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super Fantify. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and indoor science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Apocalypse Bringer, Mynoghra, Season 1, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up where last episode left off, where we had Atu, and I think it's Motair, Gia, and maybe Amel went as well. Definitely no, I believe Gia went with her, but like they end up crossing paths with some of the phone cabin, I believe is how that place is pronounced. We meet one of the main people we were kind of introduced to last episode. It's I'm gonna butcher the name. Is Tonuka Topoli, I believe, and we also meet kind of the shaman who's supposed to be, he's like one of the only staff bearers there, and he's supposed to be kind of like the leader, but he's at a young age, but he's, I guess because he has such potential and promise, even though I guess I don't know if like he's supposed to like fill her role, or whether Tonuka Poli is just kind of like an intermediate like leader of sorts. He's the real true leader. She's kind of filling that void until he's older or something. I don't know if like they're in that transitional period, like what happened to like the previous leader. Did they die, or how that whole system works in phone cabin, which I even love later on. It's like, oh, what kind of place is it? And literally everyone around the table is like, oh crap, we actually don't know anything about it, because Takuto is like, oh yeah, like playing the game initially, I never needed to know details like that. It's just it exists the way it is, and the intricacies of like what type of place it is and how it runs. You know, because we learned like basically staff bearers kind of act as like the hierarchy there. That's as much as we know, and I guess like beyond that, it's like, well, do we really need to know like it on like a like more micro level? So that ends up being a plot point we'll get to later. But obviously, Tanoku Tonak, I'm going to butcher this name every time. Tonuka Poli is obviously hesitant when dealing with like Atu and him. In fact, Atu was ready to attack because she didn't know like where they really stood until Pepe kind of broke the ice and was like, "Hey, you guys want to be friends?" And then they lead them to meet. They were on their way to meet Takuto anyway, because they are dealing with the Dragonton situation of it being like constantly attacked and stuff like that. So, and apparently, like, you know, the barbarians aren't supposed to really operate the way they have been recently. And, you know, Tonuka Poli was kind of wondering, like, well, could this place have something, you know, the accursed lands, like, could it have any correlation with what's going on? Was wondering if they had anything to do with it, but obviously they don't. But the changing and patterns on how these creatures are attacking, I wonder, does it have anything to do with the witch? Even though she's like apparently like further north, maybe she trickled some of her forces, because she does like reanimate bodies, so it wouldn't be too out of the realm of the possibility to believe she could control some of these like ogre-esque like beings and stuff like that. But either way, she reluctantly had to take Pepe with her, even though she didn't want to. But she does think in retrospective, she's like, I probably shouldn't have, because he's up here running his mouth about like, yeah, if it wasn't for me, like I gotta save the day, while, you know, and it's just, she acts as his guardian, and he's a handful. He's lots of energy, very spirited. He's actually more of what your traditional shonen protagonist would be, kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and, you know, kind of a bit of a like loudmouth idiot. You know, your Gokus, your Naruto's, your Luffy's. He's kind of got that like that optimism personality. Definitely the Naruto and Luffy have, well, probably way more Luffy, but you get what I'm saying. He would fit like your typical like tropey like shonen protagonist in any other story, right? So either way, when they get there, Pepe kind of immediately runs his mouth off, and it's like, hey, do you want to be friends? And Takuto takes the opportunity, like, yeah, let's do it, because he doesn't really have many friends. And once again, we don't know enough about Takuto in the past, but I'm sure he got sick a lot and was just always in the hospital, so he never really had an opportunity to make friends. That's speculation on my part, obviously in general, he's a very socially awkward person, but probably being in a hospital a lot of time probably didn't help him build out his social skills. But either way, I love when he reaches out to Pepe. Was like, "Yeah, let's be friends." And I love that like everyone, including Atu, are like clapping, like, "Congratulations on making a friend." It wasn't just her; the other three, Amel, Gia, and Moter also were clapping too. Because I also love like Tanuka Poli. Like I said, I'm gonna struggle to say that name every time because I'm trying to say it fast and not trying to like take it slow and enunciate it. She was kind of like, wait, I thought this was a dangerous situation I kind of walked into, and now it's this crazy, outrageous thing. They sit down, they're eating, they're drinking apple juice, and now obviously for her, it's like, oh, what is this drink? It's so delicious. The fact is, the silverware and the plating, like everything about this is very nice. Once again, they have the benefit of this all stemming from Takuto's magic and, coming from the world it comes from, like bringing that type of advancement to this world in that regard. So obviously it's meant to initially be like this like serious, like we're supposed to get down to brass tacks and kind of have negotiations, but Takuto decides like, oh, like, what are you supposed to do if you actually have a friend? So he tells like Pepe like, oh, do you want to play? And Pepe goes like, yeah, let's do it. And they play a few games, and it's actually a lot of fun. And obviously Tanuka Poli like has to, she was on pins and needles and kind of worried, but it's like, oh, it seems okay. And then they get to negotiations. So she tries to play the very like slow game. She tries to slow game this by being like, all right, let me reveal some information, but not enough. It's like, I don't want to present it like we're weak or something like this. She's like, oh, so we sent a few people out, but we still got people in reserves. But then Pepe had to open his mouth. I was like, oh, I thought we came here because we were kind of screwed on the military front side. I'm butchering what he said, but basically he revealed that they're in a much worse condition of like, oh, if we don't resolve this situation, we're all kind of screwed. And so whatever leverage they potentially had immediately gets wiped out. And but Takuto tells him, and too as well, it's like, right, we're an evil empire, but we're all about peace first and foremost. So like, we're not here to like ravage your lands or anything. It's like, nah, like we're all about like internal affairs first and foremost. Like, unless you don't mess with us, unless we have to, we're not really out for like starting beef with anyone. We're just more about like keeping what's ours and just kind of like building from there. And obviously it's like, oh, we're willing to help you, but like a condition for that is access to the dragon vein. It's like, oh, so that's what you're after the entire time. It's like, we're not going to hijack it completely. The fact of the matter is we'll work together and kind of own it jointly, but we'll also dictate what kind of element comes out of it type of situation. So it's like, because they only need to take some of the mana obviously like to benefit Mynoghra. So come into those negotiations and they'll help protect Dragonton is actually something interesting that Takuto thinks about later on, because Moter points out like, oh, the negotiations actually went our way more so because Pepe opened his mouth. But then Takuto's like, honestly, if it wasn't for Pepe being here, they would have stalled out the negotiations, because he would have taken a perspective of, okay, let's feel them out, let's suss them out a little bit more. And in that time frame, Dragonton's situation would have gotten worse. So it's like, because of this, we're actually getting to the point of like, hey, let's help the Dragonton a lot quicker. So it probably it benefits us in the long run that Pepe did what he did, because we would have slow played it. So, and he's also wondering, like, did Pepe do that on purpose? Like, is he actually kind of a lot more of a skilled leader than we're giving him credit for? It's unclear. Or whether it's just like, nah, it just happenstance to play out that way. It could also just be like he is lucky in that regard of like his juvenileness might kind of just on some higher like cosmic way, kind of not on just some like luck based thing, that he is just very lucky that he kind of maybe trips and falls into like very fortunate situations. Maybe that's all it is. Or it could also just be like, his just bubbly nature just benefits him like that, It's like it benefits just to be extremely friendly, because you never know how that might trickle down, and like the domino effects of it, I guess, might be what you stem from it. But once again, the main thing is to look after and help out Dragonton. But then there's also, once again, the whole thing of they don't really know enough about phone Caven, but it's like we got to look after Dragonton first and foremost. But it's like, well, we could send someone there to kind of get a lay of the land, and the twins end up being the ones that volunteer. Initially, Moter's like, well, I could go with them, but it's like, well, you're such a high-ranking representative. It's going to look a little more official if you go. And it's like, well, then it's like, because of that same reasoning, Gia nor Esmail could go, and then Atu's like, I'll go. Well, because I love the little moment they have, because initially Motair's like, well, we should send the kids, and he's the type that's like, right, let's kind of throw the kids that out there to kind of venture out into the world on their own. But then Takuto's like, no, but it might be dangerous, and it's like, oh, here he is being the the very protective type, and then Atu is like, if my lord needs it, I'll be the one to go. And it's like very overprotective of her king. But then Motair's like, oh, no times for jokes, Lady Atu. We all know you're the king's most trusted advisor or whatever. And then she just kind of goes like, oh my God, I'm his most trusted. And she's like, oh, I guess you're right. I guess I can't go. I love how flustered and like super happy and cheery she gets about that. And so the twins had to convince to let them go, because they're like, right, you told us we have this chance, we're here for a reason, you were telling us to use our freedom to do what we want, right? So this is what we want to do. And they kind of plead and beg him, and he kind of relents. And Atu's takeaway from it is, what, my king relinquishes like and bends the need to someone else's begging or whatever, and that like hurt her pride. And so later on she's kind of pouting a little bit, and I think it's Carrie that was like, hey, my king, like, just be more honest with her and tell her how you're feeling. And he's like, well, Atu, it's like, I'm sorry, like, sorry if I worried you, and you're the person I trust, and I wouldn't have gotten this far without you. Basically telling her how much he appreciates her. And it's like, and he's holding her hand and she's blushing, and he's just like, you're the only one for me. In that moment, it just sends her, and she's just kind of like blushes so hard it turns to mush, and then immediately starts envisioning them out to dinner, and he pulls out an engagement ring, they get married, and then they settle down in a house, and she's like, oh, whatever you say, Takuto-sama. I was like, it's once again her admiration for him. It's really beautiful, because she was getting a little jealous. I love it, because she'd even said like, go off and like make your own harem for all I care. So she just needs to know she is appreciated, which he is super appreciative of her. I don't know if he knows like how she really feels about him. I don't think he realizes it. He probably thinks like, oh, like I'm just like a good ally, because for him it's like Pepe is kind of like next to the twins, there's like a friendship there, but that's more so like, oh, you're socializing a little bit. Like Pepe's kind of like your first real friend. I don't know how he really views Atu, and I don't think he's ever really realized it, because I don't think he knows how she feels about him. But I think he's never really been in a position to ever really think about like how he feels about a girl. Like I think she might be the first person he's ever like liked in that way, but I think it just hasn't really come across to him. So I don't think he's getting like the messaging of like, yo, Atu, like not only is like your right hand, she's like, well, she's basically she will ultimately end up being your queen. But you know what I'm saying. So I just think that's something that we've never really heard or seen that side of Takuto. He knows like, oh, she's a little hurt by something I said or something I didn't say, or I was like, I'm socially awkward, so I'm not very good at reading people. So either way, they're sending the twins off, but they're not going to go alone. They're going to have bodyguards that they're going to pick up at the medic clinic. And when we see them, they're like people, I guess, I don't know if they're heroes or just people. I don't know if they're in the same, they're more in line with like the long-legged creatures in the regards of like, they're not like the heroes like Aiza and the others are, but they look like 3 plague doctors, which I was like, I'm curious to find out their whole shtick. Like, is that what they're naturally going to look like, or we're going to find out later on they're going to take off the mask and there's going to be something like completely like, oh, you think they're scary and weird, and then you take off the mask, it's like, oh, there's something else completely down below. Like, why were they specifically at the clinic? Like, was that some, like, are they dark elves that are being sent out, very specific ones or something? Like, we'll have to wait to see what their whole situation ends up being. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.